Evan had never planned to be royalty. In fact, he had never planned to be anywhere near an alien throne. He was just a human engineer, traveling through the stars in a small, patched-up freighter. He liked quiet planets, old technology, and avoiding trouble. Trouble, however, had a way of finding him, especially when he wandered into places he did not fully understand. The Orcish starship was enormous. Even from a distance, Evan could see its dark metal hull, pitted and scarred from countless battles. His mission was simple: deliver a shipment of mechanical parts to the Orcish fleet. He was supposed to dock, unload, and leave, but curiosity as always got the better of him. When the docking hatch opened, the ship's interior was larger than he expected. High ceilings loomed above him, adorned with banners of dark red and green, the colors of the Orc clans. The corridors smelled of metal, oil, and smoke. He had learned to respect Orcish culture from a distance. They were known across the galaxy as fierce warriors, clever in battle and deeply proud of their traditions. Evan walked cautiously, carrying his crate of parts. His boots echoed on the polished metal floors. Every corner he turned, he saw armored orcs, tall, broad, with green and gray skin, tusks protruding from their mouths, and eyes that seemed to pierce through him. He kept his hands visible, smiling politely. Most of them ignored him, but the occasional glance reminded him that humans were rare visitors here. He was trying to find the storage bay when a large door at the end of the corridor caught his attention. It was open slightly, letting in a soft green light. Curious, he stepped closer. From the outside, it looked like a control room, maybe even the captain's quarters. He could see a high chair inside, a seat large enough to hold someone the size of an Orc chief. "Well, that's strange," he murmured. "Why would anyone need a chair this big?" Before he knew it, Evan's curiosity betrayed him. He stepped inside, wanting a closer look. He barely noticed the intricate carvings on the walls, the banners that marked the clan, or the delicate ornaments that shimmered with alien craftsmanship. In his mind, this was just a big chair in a big room. He imagined it would be fun to sit down for a moment. He lowered himself onto the chair. It was surprisingly comfortable, with soft cushions that seemed almost magical. He leaned back, letting out a sigh. Not bad. And that was the exact moment the door slammed open. Evan froze. Standing there was the most terrifying or beautiful creature he had ever seen. She was tall, even by Orcish standards, her green-gray skin glowing faintly under the light. Her hair was braided into thick ceremonial plaits that fell over her shoulders. Her armor shimmered, painted with red and gold patterns. And her eyes were fierce, intelligent, and staring straight at him. "You," she roared, her voice echoing through the room like a cannon. "How dare you sit on the throne of Korthala?" Evan jumped, nearly falling off the chair. I'm sorry. I didn't know this was... I thought it was... Silence," she snapped. The Orcs who had appeared behind her grunted in agreement, their muscles tense, weapons ready. "According to the ancient customs of my people, whoever sits upon the throne without challenge is declared my chosen mate. You human are now bound by our law." Evan's jaw dropped. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. He shook his head. "I think you've made a mistake." "No mistake," she said, stepping closer. The floor seemed to tremble under her weight. "You sat on my throne. You accepted the bond. You are mine." The human's mind raced. His heart pounded. This had to be some kind of mistake, a misunderstanding, a cultural joke he didn't understand. "I didn't sit there to marry anyone," he stammered. Her eyes narrowed. "Words mean nothing. The throne chooses and you obey. You will stay here until the ceremonies are complete." Evan gulped. This was worse than any technical problem he had ever faced. He was an engineer. He could fix engines, rewired circuits, and even negotiate tricky trades. But this was an entirely alien problem, and the consequences sounded terrifying. Before he could protest further, the Orcish guards stepped forward. They were massive, easily twice his size, muscles bulging under their armor. One of them grunted and gestured toward the hallway. He must remain until the princess permits him to leave. Evan swallowed hard. He realized there was no escaping. He was trapped. As he sat there, trying to think, he noticed something surprising. Princess Korthala wasn't angry in the way a simple warrior might be. Her gaze was sharp, yes, but it was also curious. She studied him as if she was trying to understand him, this strange, small creature from a distant star. "You are Different from other humans, she said finally, her tone softer but still commanding. Most humans are weak. You have courage. You sit without fear. Evan blinked. Courage, he felt anything but courageous. He was scared out of his mind. But somehow she seemed to interpret his panic as bravery. I guess I didn't want to offend anyone, he said, shrugging. I just sat down. Corthala's lips twitched, almost a smile. Humans are strange. Tiny, yet bold. Perhaps you are worthy after all, Evan froze. Worthy? He didn't even know what worthy meant in Orcish culture. The thought of being a chosen mate terrified him. What if this meant he had to fight, to prove himself physically? Humans were not built like orcs. He could barely lift one of their weapons, let alone match them in combat. But Corthala seemed to see something else in him. You will stay, she said firmly. Tomorrow you will face the ritual of acceptance. If you survive, you may remain in my court. If you fail... Evan didn't want to imagine the consequences of failure. Instead, he nodded quickly. Okay, I'll stay. She waved her hand and the guards relaxed slightly. Good. You will not leave the throne room until I summon you again. Do not try to escape. The throne will call you back. Evan swallowed hard and looked around. The throne room was vast. Massive pillars stretched toward the ceiling, adorned with symbols he didn't recognize. The floor was polished to a shine, reflecting the green glow from the walls. The air smelled faintly of iron and smoke. He had never felt smaller in his life. As he sat there, he tried to think like a human would in such a situation. Plan, adapt, survive. That had always worked for him. Maybe it would work here too. He examined the chair, the carvings, and the layout of the room. Perhaps he could find some way to communicate, to negotiate, to survive the next day. Hours passed. Orcs walked through the hallways outside, speaking in guttural tones, their boots echoing. Evan stayed still, pretending to read an ancient text carved into the walls, even though he couldn't understand a single word. Finally, the princess returned. She looked at him with a mixture of amusement and curiosity. Tomorrow your first test awaits. You will learn the ways of the throne, the customs of my people, and your place beside me. Evan nodded, feeling a knot in his stomach. I'll do my best. Corthala's eyes softened just a little. Your best must be extraordinary. Humans are not born to sit on orcish thrones, but perhaps you are extraordinary. And with that she left, leaving him alone in the throne room. Evan leaned back, letting out a long sigh. His life, which had been simple and quiet among the stars, had just become infinitely complicated. He glanced at the throne beneath him and muttered, I just wanted to sit for a minute. How did this happen? Somewhere deep inside, a small spark of determination flickered. He was human. Humans survived against impossible odds. If he could fix broken engines and navigate star systems, maybe, just maybe, he could survive this. Evan closed his eyes and whispered to himself, Okay, first step. Survive the night, then figure out the rest. The throne, massive and imposing, felt heavier now. Not because of its size, but because of the responsibility it represented. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, he would begin the journey from a simple human engineer to something else entirely. And in the shadows, unseen by Evan, the Orcish court watched. They whispered among themselves, curious about the strange human who had dared to sit upon the throne without fear. Even among warriors, his courage or his foolishness was remarkable. For Evan, the night stretched long. The stars outside the window of the throne room twinkled coldly, indifferent to the strange destiny of a human caught between worlds. But one thing was clear. His life had just taken a turn from ordinary to extraordinary. And somehow he had a feeling. It was only going to get stranger. The morning light barely touched the polished floors of the Orcish palace when Evan was awakened. His sleep had been uneasy. Dreams of massive green warriors, echoing roars, and the imposing throne haunted him. He rolled off the chair that had served as his bed, his legs stiff from the unusual position. Sitting on the throne yesterday had already changed his life, and now he faced the reality. Today, the first trial awaited. A soft tap at the door announced the arrival of a guard. Unlike most of the orcs, this one did not glare at him. Instead, he nodded respectfully. The princess awaits, he said in a low, rumbling voice. Evan swallowed hard. Right. I guess that's my cue. He followed the guard down a wide corridor, passing banners of Orcish clans, ceremonial weapons, and enormous portraits of past rulers. Each step made him feel smaller in comparison to this culture of giants. Yet he reminded himself that humans had always survived in hostile worlds, against predators far larger than themselves. Maybe he could survive this too. The guard led him into a vast ceremonial ground. The next morning, the sun barely touched the horizon when Evan was summoned again. The previous day's trial had been exhausting, but he had survived. More importantly, he had impressed the Princess Korthala in ways he had never expected. Humans rarely lasted a full day in Orcish trials, yet here he was, standing outside her quarters waiting for the next challenge. When the door opened, Korthala stepped out, her expression unreadable. Her armor gleamed in the early light, highlighting the intricate markings of her clan. Today there was no crowd, no cheering orcs, no trials set up in grand arenas. This challenge was personal. "Evan," she said, her voice softer but still commanding. "Today you face me, the Princess Korthala. This is not a test of strength or cleverness alone. It is a test of understanding, of wit, and of spirit. You will not survive by brute force. You must think, observe, and adapt." Evan swallowed. "Okay, I can do that." His mind raced. He had faced machines, puzzles, and giant orcs, but facing the princess herself, someone so formidable, so intelligent, felt like standing before a living storm. She gestured toward a large training arena beyond the palace. The ground was covered with sand and scattered stones. Various objects, sticks, ropes, wooden dummies were placed around. But there was no obvious pattern, no clear instructions. "You will duel me," she said. "Not with weapons alone, but with your mind, your instincts, and your choices. Each action you take will be observed. You will demonstrate whether you can survive beside the throne." Evan nodded, trying to hide the nervousness in his chest. He realized that the princess's challenge was not meant to harm him physically. It was about adaptability, strategy, and courage, the very traits humans were known for. Korthala stepped forward, her movements precise and fluid. She held a training sword, its tip glinting in the morning light. "Begin," she commanded. Evan grabbed one of the wooden sticks nearby, unsure if it would be enough. She moved like a predator, circling him, watching his every move. He remembered his human training. Observe, anticipate, react. Quick thinking, timing, and adaptability had saved him before. They would have to save him again. She lunged first, fast and powerful. Evan sidestepped, barely avoiding the tip of her sword. His reflexes were slower than hers, but his agility allowed him to stay on his feet. He swung the stick, not to hit her, but to create distance. She leapt over it effortlessly, landing silently. "You are cautious," she said, her voice calm, almost teasing. "But caution alone will not win this challenge." Evan nodded, keeping his eyes on her movements. He noticed patterns, the way she shifted her weight before lunging, how her eyes tracked him. Humans often survived by noticing details others missed. He adjusted his stance, preparing to respond to her attacks rather than anticipating them. Minutes passed. Sand kicked up around them, and the sound of their movements echoed through the arena. Sweat ran down Evan's face, but he stayed focused. He realized something important. This challenge was not about striking the princess down. It was about understanding her, predicting her moves, and finding openings in ways she did not expect. At one point, she feigned an attack, then suddenly stopped. Evan froze, unsure what to do. Korthala smiled faintly. "Humans hesitate, predictable, but you are learning." He took a deep breath. Instead of swinging, he stepped aside, observing her closely. She attacked again, faster this time. Evan noticed a slight shift in her shoulders, a signal he had learned to recognize. Using it, he moved at just the right moment, letting her sword pass by harmlessly. "Interesting," she murmured. "You adapt quickly, faster than I anticipated." The duel continued for hours, or so it felt. Neither gained a decisive advantage. But Evan began to understand the lesson. Brute strength alone would not help him. He had to think creatively, anticipate intelligently, and use his human advantages, speed, cunning, and problem-solving, to survive. Finally, Korthala stepped back, lowering her sword. "Enough," she said. Her expression softened. "You have learned the first lesson. Strength is not enough. Adaptability, observation, and strategy are equally important. You have shown that humans, though small and seemingly fragile, can survive where others fail." Evan exhaled, relief washing over him. "So, I passed?" he asked, a weak smile on his face. Korthala nodded. You survived, yes. But survival alone is not enough. You must understand us, our ways, and our history. You must prove that you can respect our traditions while remaining true to yourself. That is the next stage, the ritual of understanding. Evan's stomach tightened. This sounded even more difficult than the physical challenge he had just faced. But he reminded himself humans were problem solvers. They learned quickly. They adapted. He could do this. Where do I start? He asked. Corthala smiled faintly, a rare gesture. Tonight you study. You learn. Tomorrow you face the ritual. If you succeed, you will earn my trust. Fail and you return to being just a human visitor. Perhaps never welcome in our court again. Evan nodded. He realized that the princess's challenge was more than a test. It was an invitation. If he could understand her, if he could navigate Orcish culture, he could survive and thrive. And maybe, just maybe, he could find a place beside the throne. As the day passed, Evan observed the palace and its inhabitants. Orcs moved with purpose, whether in combat training, managing the palace, or performing daily tasks. Everything was structured, disciplined, and steeped in tradition. Evan took mental notes, absorbing as much as he could. He knew that understanding these customs would be key to surviving the next stage. That evening, Corthala returned to check on him. You watch and learn, I see, she said. Good. Observation is the first step toward understanding. But you must also participate. Tomorrow you will demonstrate that you have grasped the essence of our ways. Evan nodded. I will, I promise. She studied him for a long moment. Humans are fascinating, she said finally. So small yet capable of so much. Perhaps this bond, accidental as it may be, is not without merit. Evan felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. Accidental as it was, the bond was now real in Orcish eyes. There was no turning back. But humans were survivors. If anyone could navigate this strange, powerful culture, it would be him. That night, Evan stayed awake studying every detail he had observed. He memorized gestures, listened to conversations, and considered every aspect of Orcish life. Humans had always thrived in hostile environments by learning quickly and adapting. This was no different. By the time dawn arrived, Evan felt a growing confidence. The princess's challenge had been a lesson in patience, observation, and strategy. He understood that surviving alongside orcs would require more than courage. It would require intelligence, adaptability, and respect. When the morning came, Corthala appeared once more. Today the ritual of understanding begins, she announced. You will show that you can think as we do, yet remain yourself. This is the test of spirit, wit, and heart. Let us see if a human can truly belong beside the throne. Evan took a deep breath. He felt fear, yes, but also a spark of determination. Humans had always survived against impossible odds. He had faced machines, hostile planets, and now orcs. Each time he had adapted, learned, and prevailed. Today would be no different. As he followed the princess into the ceremonial arena, Evan realized something important. The throne, once a symbol of danger and confusion, now represented possibility. If he could understand Corthala, if he could respect the orcs while staying true to himself, he might not only survive, he might thrive. And for the first time, Evan felt a strange sense of excitement. Humans survived, adapted, and excelled. He was about to prove that once again on a stage far larger than any he had imagined. The stars outside the palace shimmered coldly. But inside the arena, Evan felt something warm. A growing belief that he belonged, even among the fiercest of the Orcish warriors. Tomorrow everything would change, but tonight he was ready to face it. The quiet of the Orcish palace was shattered by the blaring alarms. Red lights flashed across the halls, casting long shadows over the stone floors. Evan woke with a start. This time there would be no trials or tests. This was real danger. He scrambled to his feet, nearly tripping over the folds of the ceremonial robe he had been instructed to wear. Orcish guards rushed past, their massive frames moving with precision and urgency. The walls shook as heavy doors sealed automatically, locking the palace from outside threats. What's happening? Evan shouted to the nearest guard. Raiders, the orc growled. Rival clans from the outer systems. They attack without warning. Everyone must defend the palace. Evan's heart raced. He had never been in a battle like this before. Orcs were strong, fierce, and experienced fighters, but he knew instinctively that humans could survive by thinking ahead. Using strategy and acting quickly, Corthala appeared suddenly, standing tall in the palace courtyard, her armor reflecting the flashing lights. "Evan," she shouted over the alarms. "If you want to survive and prove your worth, you must help coordinate our defenses. Your quick thinking can save lives." Evan swallowed hard. "Okay, I'll do my best." The courtyard was chaos. Orcish warriors clashed with intruders, their heavy weapons striking with thunderous force. Ships hovered above, some blasting energy bolts that streaked toward the palace walls. The air smelled of ozone, metal, and smoke. Evan could feel the vibrations under his feet. Korthala guided him to a rais. The palace was quiet the morning after the battle, but the atmosphere was far from peaceful. Orcish guards and advisors moved with focused precision, repairing damages, checking defenses, and ensuring the raiders had not left surprises behind. Evan walked carefully through the halls, aware that his presence was no longer a curiosity. He was now a participant in Orcish life, someone whose decisions mattered. Korthala approached him in the central courtyard, her stride purposeful. "Today," she said, "you will learn the customs and ceremonies that define our people. Understanding them is essential to earning trust. The throne is more than a seat. It is a symbol of responsibility, leadership, and honor." Evan nodded. "I understand. I'll do my best." "Good," she replied. "Your best must be consistent. Humans can be clever, yes, but consistency proves character." Their first lesson was in respect and hierarchy. Orcish society had strict rules governing interactions, speech, and gestures. A small misstep could be seen as an insult, and in a warrior culture, even words carried weight. Evan listened carefully as Korthala explained the proper ways to address elders, the correct gestures during ceremonies, and the significance of each ritual item in the throne room. "This is important," she said. "The throne binds us not only in authority but in responsibility. To belong here, you must honor those traditions even if they seem unfamiliar." Evan practiced the gestures, occasionally fumbling but quickly correcting himself under Korthala's watchful eye. Orcish warriors nearby observed silently. Some exchanged glances, impressed by his diligence. He was small, yes, but he was learning, adapting, and showing respect, qualities valued even more than raw strength. After the lessons on tradition, Korthala led him to the palace kitchens. Here the trial was different. Collaboration and problem-solving. Orcish meals were elaborate, requiring careful preparation, timing, and coordination. Evan had never cooked for dozens of warriors before, but he observed, listened, and followed instructions. "Humans are adaptable," Korthala said, watching him mix ingredients with precision. "Even in unfamiliar situations, you find a way to succeed." Evan smiled faintly. "I'm just following your instructions." "Yes," she replied, "but that is also a skill. Following instructions well while thinking ahead is what keeps leaders alive in battle and in life." Next, Korthala introduced him to the Orcish archives, a vast library of history, laws, and stories of past leaders. Understanding the past was crucial for anyone wishing to earn trust in Orcish society. Evan spent hours reading, memorizing key events, and asking thoughtful questions. Orcish scholars noted his curiosity and diligence. "You absorb knowledge differently than orcs," one of the senior advisors whispered to Korthala. "He asks questions, thinks logically. It is rare but effective." Korthala nodded. "Humans are underestimated too often. Perhaps this one will prove an exception." As the day passed, Evan gradually began to feel a connection, not only to Korthala but to the Orcs as a people. They were fierce, disciplined, and proud, yes, but they also respected intelligence, courage, and determination. He realized that survival alone would not earn trust. He had to show understanding, respect, and initiative. The final part of the day was the most challenging, a test of diplomacy. Two rival Orcish clans had a long-standing disagreement over territory, and Korthala wanted to see if Evan could navigate the delicate situation. He was brought before both clan leaders, who eyed him with suspicion and quiet hostility. "You are human," one of them growled. "Why should we listen to your advice?" Evan squared his shoulders. "I may be human," he said calmly, "but I have seen how conflict can escalate unnecessarily. If we work together, we can find a solution that benefits everyone and prevents further bloodshed." The leaders exchanged skeptical glances. Evan continued, "Each of you has strengths. Together you can protect your people more effectively than by fighting each other. I am not here to take sides, only to help you see options you may not have considered." Korthala watched silently, her expression unreadable. Evan could feel the weight of her gaze. This was a test not of combat, but of intellect and persuasion. Slowly, the leaders began to discuss solutions. They asked questions, challenged ideas, and debated options. Evan listened carefully, guiding them subtly using logic and reasoning to highlight mutual benefits. Hours later, the clans reached a tentative agreement, nodding in cautious approval. Corthala stepped forward. "You have done well," she said. "Not with weapons, but with wisdom. Humans think differently, and sometimes differently is better. Today you earned more than respect, you earned trust." Evan exhaled, feeling a mixture of relief and pride. Humans had survived countless challenges across the galaxy by thinking, adapting, and learning quickly. Here, in the heart of Orcish society, he had proven those abilities once again. That evening, Corthala led him back to the throne room. She gestured toward the massive chair he had sat on by accident weeks ago. "You have learned our ways, human. You have faced danger, adapted, and survived. You have shown courage, intelligence, and respect. You are ready to remain in my court if you choose." Evan looked at the throne, feeling its weight not as a threat but as an opportunity. He thought of all he had learned, the trials, the battle, the traditions, and the diplomacy. Each had been a step toward understanding, a step toward belonging. I want to stay," he said finally. "I want to learn more and help however I can." Corthala's expression softened faintly. "Very well," she said. "You are no longer just a visitor. You are part of this court, part of our lives. The bond that began as accident may now have meaning." Evan nodded, realizing how far he had come. Humans were not built like orcs, but they had unique strengths, cleverness, adaptability, and courage under pressure. He had used all of them to survive, thrive, and earn trust. The Orcish guards who had once eyed him with suspicion now nodded respectfully. Scholars and warriors alike whispered their approval. Evan felt a growing sense of belonging, a human in an alien world accepted not by force but by proving his worth. Corthala stepped closer, her eyes meeting his. "You have survived trials, battles, and cultural tests. Tomorrow we begin the next stage, building bonds, understanding hearts, and forging relationships. If you continue to show wisdom and courage, you may find that even a human can leave a lasting mark among orcs." Evan smiled faintly, exhausted but determined. Humans had always survived where others thought they could not. They adapted, they learned, and they thrived. And now, in the heart of the Orcish palace, he felt that he was ready for anything the future might bring. That night, as he lay on the floor of the throne room, he thought about the journey so far. What began as an accident, sitting on a throne, had grown into something far larger. He had faced trials, survived battles, and learned the ways of a proud and powerful culture. Humans were resilient, he realized. They could survive the impossible, adapt to the unfamiliar, and leave a mark in worlds that seemed hostile at first glance. And in this alien world of green-skinned warriors, one small human had done exactly that. The stars outside twinkled coldly, but inside, Evan felt warmth. Respect, trust, and belonging were rare gifts, and he had earned them through courage, intellect, and heart. The throne, once a symbol of confusion and fear, now represented opportunity. A chance to prove that humans, no matter how small or fragile, could thrive in any environment. Evan closed his eyes, letting the lessons of the day sink in. Tomorrow he would continue to learn, grow, and forge connections. The adventure was far from over, but for the first time, he felt that he belonged. Humans had survived against impossible odds before, and here among orcs he was ready to do so again. The palace was calm, yet the air was charged with anticipation. Today was not a trial, a battle, or a lesson. Today was the moment that would decide Evan's place in the Orcish court and, perhaps in the life of Princess Corthala. Weeks of surviving tests, observing customs, leading defenses, and learning traditions had brought him here. Now he had to prove finally and completely that he belonged. Corthala appeared before him in the central courtyard, her presence commanding as ever. She did not carry a weapon, yet her aura spoke of authority. Orcs from the court lined the surrounding areas, standing silently, watching, waiting. Their expressions were serious but respectful. Even the warriors who had once doubted him now regarded Evan with cautious admiration. "Evan," Corthala said, her voice carrying across the courtyard, "you have survived trials, guided our warriors, learned our ways, and proven your intelligence and courage. But to truly sit beside the throne, one must demonstrate heart, understanding, and the ability to inspire. Today you face the final challenge. Evan's stomach tightened. He had survived so much already. Yet he felt a spark of nervous excitement. Humans were known for their resilience, for adapting to the unknown, and for finding strength even in impossible situations. He would need all of that today. Korthala gestured toward a large arena set up specifically for this moment. It was different from the trial grounds or the battlefield. Here the challenge was subtle, less visible yet no less demanding. Several Orcish elders and advisors were present, as well as warriors of all ranks. You must lead a council, she explained. You will hear disputes, provide guidance, and show that you can unify people of different clans in PT.